Marcus Chun had always been average, standing at 5 feet 9 inches with unremarkable brown hair and eyes that seemed perpetually tired. He blended into crowds like camouflage. His life followed predictable patterns. Work at the communications array, meals of processed protein, sleep in his cramped quarters aboard the research vessel Prometheus. Nothing about him suggested he would one day reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. The Prometheus drifted through the Kepler 442 system, its sensors scanning for signs of life on the fourth planet. Earth's colonial administration had sent them here, following reports of unusual energy signatures. What they found exceeded every expectation and shattered every assumption about humanity's place in the universe. The alien ship appeared without warning. One moment, the Prometheus floated alone among the stars. The next, a vessel the size of a small city materialized nearby, its surface gleaming with materials that seemed to bend light around them. The ship's design defied human understanding. Flowing curves that somehow maintained perfect geometric precision, surfaces that appeared solid yet transparent simultaneously. Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled through the comm system, barely concealing his nervousness. All hands to stations. We have first contact protocols to follow. Marcus abandoned his routine calibrations and joined the rest of the crew in the main observation deck. Through the reinforced windows, the alien vessel loomed impossibly large. Smaller craft detached from its hull like seeds from a flower, moving with graceful precision toward the Prometheus. The first aliens to board their ship moved like liquid mercury given form. They stood roughly 8 feet tall, their bodies covered in what appeared to be living armor that shifted colors with each breath. But it was their leader who commanded attention. She entered the docking bay with the confidence of someone who had never known defeat. Her armor bore intricate patterns that seemed to tell stories in languages humanity had never seen. When she removed her helmet, she revealed features that were hauntingly beautiful. High cheekbones, skin that held an inner luminescence, and eyes that shifted color like opals in sunlight. Her hair moved as if underwater, defying gravity in ways that suggested technology far beyond human comprehension. "I am Princess Zareth of the Veltar Empire," she announced, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated in frequencies humans could barely perceive. "Your primitive vessel has entered territory under our protection." Captain Rodriguez stepped forward, his diplomatic training evident in his measured words. "Welcome aboard the UES Prometheus. I'm Captain Rodriguez, representing Earth's colonial administration. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship among the stars." Princess Zareth's laugh rang like crystal bells breaking. "Friendship? Your species has barely learned to leave your birth world. You travel in ships that burn chemical fuel and communicate with electromagnetic waves. What could such primitives possibly offer the Veltar Empire?" The crew exchanged uncomfortable glances. Everything she said was true, yet her dismissive tone stung more than her words. Humanity had always imagined first contact as a meeting of equals, not as children being scolded by adults. "We may be new to space travel," Captain Rodriguez replied carefully, "but we have much to offer. Our scientific knowledge, our cultural diversity, your what?" Princess Zareth interrupted. "Your knowledge of splitting atoms? We mastered fusion when your ancestors lived in caves. Your cultural diversity? We have encountered and cataloged 17,000 sentient species. Your art? Your music? Your literature?" She gestured dismissively. "We have seen countless civilizations rise and fall. There is nothing new under any sun." Marcus watched from the back of the crowd, feeling each word like a physical blow. His entire species reduced to cosmic insignificance in minutes. The princess continued her assessment of humanity with clinical detachment, listing their technological shortcomings like a teacher grading failed examinations. "Your biological limitations alone mark you as inferior," she continued. "Short lifespans, fragile bodies, primitive sensory organs. You perceive only a narrow slice of the electromagnetic spectrum. You cannot survive in most environments without artificial protection. Your very genetics scream of evolutionary dead ends. Dr. Sarah Kim, the expedition's chief scientist, found her voice. Perhaps we could learn from each other. Scientific exchange is always learn. Princess Zareth's eyes flashed. What could we learn from a species that took 50,000 years to achieve spaceflight? We have technologies that reshape reality itself. We can manipulate matter at the quantum level, fold space-time like origami, and commune with the fundamental forces of the universe. Your greatest achievements would barely register as curiosities in our museums. The princess activated a device at her wrist. Holographic displays filled the air around her, showing impossible scenes. Cities that floated in gas, giant atmospheres. Beings who seemed made of pure energy, tending gardens on asteroid surfaces. Massive structures that harvested power directly from black holes. This is but a fraction of what the Veltar Empire encompasses, she said. We rule over 300 star systems. Our citizens live for millennia. We have transcended the petty concerns of biology, economics, and mortality that still plague your kind. Marcus felt something building inside him. Not anger, exactly, but a growing pressure he couldn't name. The princess's words rang through his mind, each dismissal of humanity cutting deeper than the last. Around him, his crewmates stood in stunned silence, their dreams of cosmic brotherhood crumbling. Perhaps, Captain Rodriguez said, his voice strained, we could discuss this more privately. As representatives of our respective peoples. Representatives? Princess Zareth laughed again. Captain, you misunderstand. This is not a negotiation between equals. This is a warning. Your species will remain in this system for exactly 72 hours. You will catalog whatever simple observations your primitive instruments can manage, then return to your home world. Any attempt to establish permanent presence here will be met with discouragement. What gives you the right? Began Lieutenant Torres. Right. The princess's harmonics took on dangerous undertones. We have the right of superior force, superior intelligence, and superior experience. We have been traveling between stars since before your sun ignited. We have seen species like yours appear and vanish in cosmic eye blinks. Some learn their place and survive in quiet corners of the galaxy. Others, she let the implications hang in recycled air. Marcus stepped forward before he realized he was moving. You're wrong about us. The words came out quietly, but something in his tone made the entire room turn toward him. Princess Zareth's shifting eyes fixed on his face with sudden intensity. Excuse me, she said. You're wrong about us, Marcus repeated, his voice gaining strength. About humanity. You see our technology and assume we're primitives. You measure our lifespans and call us inferior. But you don't understand what drives us. Princess Zareth moved closer, her presence seeming to fill the space between them. And what, little human, do you believe I fail to understand? Marcus met her gaze steadily. Around him, he could feel his crewmate's tension, but something else was building inside him, a certainty he'd never felt before. You talk about all the species you've encountered, all the technologies you've mastered, all the systems you control. But in all that time, with all that power, what have you actually accomplished? I have already listed our achievements. No, Marcus interrupted, surprising himself with his boldness. You've listed your acquisitions, your possessions, your dominion over others. But what have you created? What problems have you solved? What suffering have you ended? The princess's eyes narrowed. You dare lecture me about suffering? Your species wages war over resources that could easily support your entire population. You poison your own world while fighting over its pieces. You create artificial scarcity while your people starve. You're right, Marcus admitted. We do all of those things. We make terrible mistakes. We hurt each other. We're short-sighted and often cruel, and we've barely figured out how to live on our own planet, let alone travel between stars. Captain Rodriguez shot him a warning look, but Marcus continued. But here's what you don't see, he said. Every day, despite all of that, we try to do better. Every generation, we push a little further, learn a little more, help a few more people. We don't just acquire power, we question what to do with it. We don't just catalog suffering, we work to end it. Princess Zaraeth's expression remained unreadable, but Marcus sensed he had her attention in a way that went beyond mere curiosity. You measure us against your empire and find us wanting, he continued. But your empire is built on telling others they're inferior. Our civilization is built on the idea that everyone can be better. You've had millennia to perfect your society, and this is what you chose, cosmic bullying. We've had a few centuries of real science, and we chose to reach for the stars. Naive idealism, the princess said, but her voice lacked its earlier certainty. Every species believes itself special. Most discover their error when they encounter their superiors. Maybe, Marcus said, or maybe you've been encountering the wrong species. Maybe you've gotten so comfortable being the biggest fish that you've forgotten there are oceans you've never seen. The pressure building inside him intensified. His vision seemed to sharpen, bringing details into focus he'd never noticed before. The princess's armor wasn't just decorative. It was alive, somehow, responding to her emotional state. The pattern shifted as she spoke, revealing data streams he could almost read. Such confidence from such a primitive, Princess Zaraeth mused. Tell me, Marcus Chun. Yes, I know your name. Our sensors scanned your crew the moment you spoke. What makes you believe your species offers anything we haven't seen before? Marcus hesitated. How could he explain something he didn't fully understand himself? The pressure inside him wasn't entirely his own. It felt older, deeper, like something awakening after a long sleep. I don't know, he admitted, but I know you're afraid of us. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Princess Zaraeth's entourage shifted position, hands moving toward weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. But she held up a hand, stopping them. Afraid, she said softly. Of you, not of us as we are now. Marcus clarified, his thoughts crystallizing as he spoke. Of what we might become. That's why you're here, isn't it? Not to warn off trespassers, but to evaluate a threat. Your empire has sensors that can detect our ships from light years away. You could have destroyed us or driven us off without ever showing yourselves. But you came in person because something about humanity caught your attention. Princess Zaraeth circled him slowly, like a predator studying prey. Continue. Your empire spans hundreds of systems and thousands of years, Marcus said. It's stable, powerful, seemingly eternal. But it's also static. When was the last time you discovered something genuinely new? When did you last face a real challenge? When did you last grow? Growth comes from strength and wisdom, she replied. Not from the thrashing of primitives too ignorant to know their limitations. Does it? Marcus asked. Because from where I stand, it looks like your empire stopped growing the day it decided it was already perfect. You don't explore anymore. You survey your possessions. You don't learn. You catalog what you already know. You don't create. You maintain what already exists. The pressure inside him built to almost unbearable levels. His hands began to tingle, and the air around him seemed to shimmer with heat distortion. Several crew members stepped back instinctively. Humanity reached for the stars because we dream of something better, he continued, his voice gaining resonance. What do your people dream of? What drives them to wake up each morning when they already have everything? Princess Zaraeth's eyes widened. What are you? I'm human, Marcus said simply. Maybe that means more than you think. The shimmering around him intensified. Through his enhanced perception, he could see energy patterns in the princess's armor reacting to something. Not his words, but something emanating from him. Her entourage raised their weapons, but the princess stopped them again. Impossible, she whispered. The scan showed nothing unusual. Marcus felt something shifting inside his mind, like doors opening after being locked for years. Suddenly, he could see the quantum underpinnings of the princess's technology, The elegant mathematics that governed her armor's responses, the subtle energy fields that maintained her ship's impossible physics. Not just see them, understand them. Your scans wouldn't detect what they weren't designed to look for, he said, his voice carrying new harmonics that made the princess step backward. You're looking for technology, for genetic markers, for signs of development along paths your experience recognizes. But what if humanity developed along a completely different path? What if our apparent primitiveness hides capabilities your science hasn't encountered before? Telepathy? Psychic powers? Princess Zaraeth shook her head. We've cataloged dozens of species with mental abilities far beyond anything your kind has demonstrated. Not psychic, Marcus said, feeling the truth of it as he spoke. Something else. Something your instruments can't measure because it operates outside the parameters of your understanding. The energy around him was visible now, golden threads of light that seemed to connect him to everything in the room. Through these connections, he could sense the emotions and thoughts of everyone present, his crewmates' confusion and awe, the alien guard's nervousness, and from Princess Zurath something he hadn't expected, excitement. "What are you?" she asked again, but this time her voice held wonder rather than dismissal. "I'm starting to find out," Marcus replied. The golden energy suddenly expanded outward, washing over everyone in the room. For a brief moment, the barriers between species disappeared. Marcus felt the princess's memories, centuries of conquest and exploration, of cataloging dead civilizations, and absorbing their knowledge, of growing ever more powerful and ever more bored. He felt her guards' loyalty and their fear. He felt his crewmates' hopes and dreams for humanity's future among the stars. And they felt him, not his thoughts, but his essence. The weight of human history, the struggles and triumphs, the endless reaching for something better despite constant failure. The raw creative force that had driven humanity from caves to stars in mere millennia. The unquenchable hunger for growth, for knowledge, for connection. The energy faded as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving everyone gasping. Princess Zaraeth stared at Marcus with an expression he couldn't read. "Well," she said finally, "this changes things." Marcus swayed on his feet, the effort having drained him more than he'd expected. Captain Rodriguez caught his arm, steadying him. "What just happened?" Dr. Kim asked, her scientific mind struggling to process what she'd witnessed. "Something impossible," Princess Zuraeth said softly. "Something that should not exist." She looked at Marcus with new respect. "Your species isn't just primitive. It's primitive and awakening. That's a combination we've never encountered." Awakening to what? Marcus asked, though part of him already knew. To abilities that predate technology. To powers that shaped the universe before matter learned to think. We Veltar achieved our dominance through mastering the forces of nature. You humans may be remembering how to become those forces. She activated her wrist device again, but this time the holographic displays showed different images. Ancient artifacts, mysterious energies, phenomena that defied explanation even by Veltar science. "These are relics of the first ones," she explained. "The beings who existed before our empire, before any empire. They wielded abilities that make our greatest technologies look like children's toys. We've spent millennia trying to understand even fragments of their power." Marcus stared at the images, feeling recognition stir in depths of memory he didn't know he possessed. What happened to them? "No one knows," Princess Zaraeth admitted. "They simply left. Some say they transcended physical existence entirely. Others believe they seeded the galaxy with the potential for their return." The implications hit the room like a shockwave. Captain Rodriguez found his voice first. "You think humans are descended from these first ones?" "Not descended," the princess corrected. "Chosen. Or perhaps awakened by proximity to their relics." She gestured toward Marcus. "The energy signatures your ship detected in this system, they're not natural phenomena. This planet contains artifacts of the first ones. Your arrival may have triggered something dormant within your species. Marcus felt the pressure building again, but this time he didn't fight it. Instead, he let it flow through him, around him, connecting him to patterns of energy he was only beginning to perceive. Through these connections, he could sense something vast stirring beneath the surface of a nearby planet. "There's more," he said, his enhanced awareness revealing truths that science couldn't yet measure. "The awakening isn't limited to me. It's spreading." Princess Zarieth's eyes widened. "To your entire crew?" "To all of humanity," Marcus replied, certainty flooding through him. "Every human alive, wherever they are in the galaxy." The potential was always there, waiting for the right trigger. First contact with you, proximity to the artifacts, the quantum resonance of our combined hopes and fears, it's all connected. Dr. Kim pulled out her scanner, its readings confirming what Marcus already knew. "I'm detecting unusual neural activity in everyone here. Brainwave patterns that don't match anything in our medical databases." "How long?" Princess Zareth asked urgently. "How long before the awakening is complete?" Marcus closed his eyes, feeling the pulse of transformation spreading across space toward Earth, touching every human mind like ripples in a cosmic pond. "Hours for the initial wave. Days for the full manifestation. Weeks before we understand what we've become." The princess turned to her guards, speaking in rapid harmonics that Marcus somehow understood despite never hearing the language before. They were preparing to depart, to carry word of humanity's awakening to the highest levels of the Veltar Empire. "Wait," Captain Rodriguez called out. "What happens now? What does this mean for relations between our peoples?" Princess Zarieth paused at the airlock. "It means everything changes. The Veltar Empire has never encountered a species in the process of awakening to First One abilities. We've built our civilization on the assumption that such powers were extinct forever. Are you going to try to stop us?" Lieutenant Torres asked. "Stop you?" The princess's laugh held new notes, uncertainty mixed with anticipation. "Little warrior, no force in the galaxy could stop what has already begun. The question is whether your species will use these emerging abilities to create or destroy, whether you'll fulfill the potential we sense within you or burn yourselves to ash in the process." Marcus stepped forward again, feeling more centered now that he understood what was happening to him. "And what role does your empire play in that decision?" Princess Zareth studied him carefully. "That remains to be seen. For now, we watch. We learn. We prepare for a galaxy that may be about to change in ways we cannot predict." She moved toward the airlock, then turned back one final time. "Marcus Chun, when your awakening is complete, when your abilities fully manifest, seek us out. The Veltar Empire would be very interested in negotiations with equals." "Equals? Doctor Kim repeated. "Oh yes," the princess replied, her shifting eyes fixed on Marcus. "Perhaps for the first time in millennia, we have found our equals." The universe just became far more interesting. The aliens departed as gracefully as they'd arrived, their ships fading into whatever dimension they used for faster-than-light travel. The crew of the Prometheus stood in stunned silence, processing what they'd experienced. Captain Rodriguez was the first to speak. "Mr. Chun, I think we need to talk." But Marcus was already moving toward the planetary sensors, drawn by impulses he was only beginning to understand. The artifacts below were calling to him, offering knowledge and power beyond imagination. The awakening had begun, and there was no turning back. Behind him, his crewmates watched as golden energy began to flicker around his hands again. In the distance, Earth continued its orbit around an ordinary star, unaware that everything was about to change. The transformation of humanity had begun with the mocking laughter of an alien princess. It would end with the birth of something new in the galaxy, something that might elevate or destroy everything in its path. Marcus pressed his hands against the sensor console, feeling the quantum circuits respond to his touch in ways they were never designed to handle. Through the ship's instruments, he reached out toward the mysterious planet below, toward the ancient artifacts that held the keys to humanity's future. Whatever came next, one thing was certain. The galaxy would never be the same. The quantum resonance hit Earth like a wave of invisible fire. In hospitals across the planet, medical equipment began registering impossible readings. In Seoul, Dr. Elizabeth Park watched in amazement as her comatose patients suddenly showed brain activity that exceeded normal waking levels. In London, Professor James Wright felt his decades-old migraine disappear as neural pathways he'd never known existed suddenly blazed to life. In Sao Paulo, Maria Santos looked up from her engineering blueprints to find she could visualize quantum interactions as clearly as mechanical gears. The wave moved faster than light, touching every human consciousness simultaneously. From the orbital stations around Luna to the mining colonies in the asteroid belt, from the research outposts on Mars to the generation ships still traveling toward distant stars, humanity began to change. Back aboard the Prometheus, Marcus stood at the center of a storm he couldn't yet control. Golden energy flowed through the ship's systems, rewriting quantum circuits and enhancing processing capabilities far beyond their original specifications. The planetary's sensors, now boosted by his emerging abilities, revealed details about the surface below that should have been impossible to detect. "Captain," Dr. Kim called out, her voice tight with excitement and fear. "I'm reading massive structures beneath the planet's surface. The entire landmass appears to be artificial." Captain Rodriguez joined her at the enhanced displays, watching as impossible architecture revealed itself to their boosted sensors. Cities that span continents, transportation networks that moved through dimensions rather than space, manufacturing facilities that seemed to create matter from pure energy. "It's not just ruins," Marcus said, his awareness expanding to encompass the planet's quantum signature. "It's dormant. Waiting. Waiting for what?" Lieutenant Torres asked. Marcus turned toward them, his eyes now holding flecks of golden light that pulsed with his heartbeat. "For us. For humanity to develop enough to understand what we're seeing." Dr. Kim's scanner beeped frantically as it detected the changes in Marcus's biology. His neural activity has increased by 800%. His cellular metabolism is operating at levels that should be impossible for human physiology. And these energy readings... "Doc," Marcus interrupted gently, "your scanner can't measure what's happening because it's not just happening to my body. It's happening to my connection to everything else." He demonstrated by placing his hand on a nearby wall panel. Instantly, the ship's lights brightened as power efficiency increased dramatically. Environmental systems that had been running at 93% effectiveness suddenly jumped to 115%. "That's impossible," Dr. Kim whispered. "You can't improve efficiency beyond 100% without violating thermodynamics." "Unless," Marcus replied, "you're drawing energy from sources conventional science hasn't discovered yet. Unless the universe has layers of reality we've never learned to perceive." Captain Rodriguez felt a strange tingling in his own hands and looked down to see faint traces of similar golden energy beginning to manifest. "It's spreading to us too." "To everyone," Marcus confirmed. "The awakening isn't limited to individuals. It's species-wide. By now, every human alive is beginning to experience some level of enhancement." As if summoned by his words, communications from Earth began flooding their systems. Emergency broadcasts, scientific reports, military alerts, all describing the same phenomenon. Humans worldwide were manifesting abilities that defied explanation. In Tokyo, a construction worker named Hiroshi had prevented a building collapse by somehow strengthening the molecular bonds in failing support beams. In Cairo, DR, Amira Hassan had successfully performed brain surgery with her bare hands, using energy fields to repair neural damage that conventional medicine considered incurable. In New York, a street musician named David had played a violin so perfectly that everyone within 6 blocks had stopped what they were doing to listen, feeling emotions they couldn't name. "The reports are coming in faster than we can process them," Lieutenant Torres said, monitoring communications. "Telekinesis, enhanced cognition, energy manipulation, some kind of empathic broadcasting. And that's just in the first few hours. Marcus nodded, feeling the pulse of human consciousness as it adapted to its new capabilities. It's not random. Each person is manifesting abilities that connect to their fundamental nature. Engineers are developing matter manipulation. Doctors are gaining biological enhancement capabilities. Artists are learning to affect reality through pure, creative expression. And you? Captain Rodriguez asked. What's your fundamental nature? Marcus considered the question, feeling the vast network of connections that now linked him to every awakening human mind. I'm a bridge, a translator between what we were and what we're becoming. Dr. Kim's scanner suddenly emitted a new alarm tone. Captain, I'm detecting massive energy signatures emerging from the planet's surface. Whatever's down there, it's responding to the awakening. The main display screen filled with images that shouldn't have been possible. Ancient structures were rising from beneath continents of accumulated sediment, revealing themselves for the first time in millions of years. Towers that twisted through dimensions, platforms that floated without visible support, conduits that channeled energies the ship's instruments couldn't identify. It's beautiful, Dr. Kim breathed. Marcus felt the truth of it through his enhanced perception. The first ones hadn't simply abandoned their technology. They'd hidden it, encoded it into the quantum substrate of reality itself, waiting for a species capable of awakening to its true potential. Humanity wasn't inheriting alien artifacts. They were remembering abilities that had been dormant in the structure of consciousness itself. Captain, Lieutenant Torres called urgently. We're receiving another transmission. It's from the Veltar fleet. Princess Zoroeth's image appeared on the main screen, but she was no longer aboard the elegant vessel that had first approached them. Behind her, massive warships stretched to the horizon, hundreds of vessels that dwarfed even her impressive flagship. Marcus Chun of Earth, she began formally. I bring greetings from the Veltar High Council. In the 6 hours since our first meeting, your species has become the subject of intense interest throughout our empire. The golden energy around Marcus intensified as he sensed the emotions behind her words. You're afraid, terrified, she admitted without hesitation. Not of what you are now, but of what you're becoming. Our scientists have never observed an awakening of this magnitude. Entire sections of space-time are resonating in harmony with human consciousness. Quantum fields that have remained stable for billions of years are suddenly fluctuating. Captain Rodriguez stepped into the transmission range. Princess, we want you to know that humanity has no intention of using these new abilities aggressively. We seek peaceful coexistence with all species. Princess Zoroeth's expression softened slightly. Captain Rodriguez, your intentions may be peaceful, but intentions and consequences are not always aligned. When a species awakens to first one abilities, the effects ripple across the galaxy, whether they intend them to or not. Marcus felt a chill of premonition. What kind of effects? Show him, the princess said to someone off-screen. New images appeared, star systems where planets had simply vanished, leaving perfect spheres of crystallized space-time. Regions where physics operated according to different laws, creating zones of reality that followed the dreams and nightmares of awakened minds. Solar systems that had been transformed into vast works of art, their planets reshaped into forms that existed purely for aesthetic beauty. These are the remnants of other awakening species, Princess Zoroeth explained. Most never learned to control their new abilities. Their consciousness became so powerful that it began reshaping reality according to their deepest desires and fears. Entire civilizations vanished overnight, transformed into abstract expressions of their collective unconscious. Dr. Kim stared at the images in horror. How many species awakened to these abilities? In recorded history? 17. How many learned to master them safely? The princess paused. 1. The first ones themselves. The other 16 either destroyed themselves or transcended physical reality so completely that they might as well have. Marcus felt the weight of galactic history pressing down on him. And now humanity is number 18. Yes, Princess Zaraeth confirmed. But with one crucial difference. You're awakening while still in contact with other species. The previous 17 awakened in isolation, with no outside perspective to help them understand what was happening. You have us. Captain Rodriguez frowned. You're offering to help us? I'm offering to try, the princess replied. The Veltar Empire has studied these phenomena for millennia. We've learned to recognize the signs, to predict the stages of awakening, even to influence them to some degree. But we've never had the opportunity to guide a species through the process in real time. Marcus sensed the deeper currents beneath her words. What do you want in return? Princess Zaraeth smiled, and for the first time it seemed genuinely warm rather than predatory. Knowledge, understanding, the chance to witness and document something that may never happen again. And perhaps, she hesitated, perhaps the opportunity for our own species to grow beyond what we've become. Meaning, the Veltar Empire achieved our current form through technological advancement. We enhanced our bodies, extended our lifespans, and expanded our minds using external tools. But we reached the limits of that path long ago. For the past 1,000 years, we've been essentially static, powerful but unchanged. She gestured towards something beyond the screen's range. Watching your awakening has reminded our people of possibilities we've forgotten. Not the power to control reality through technology, but the ability to become part of reality itself. Some of our philosophers believe that observing humanity's transformation might trigger our own evolutionary leap. Marcus felt the truth and danger in her words. A symbiotic awakening. Humanity developing organic abilities while the Veltar transcend their technological limitations. Exactly. Two species helping each other reach potentials neither could achieve alone. Dr. Kim looked up from her instruments. Marcus, I'm detecting massive quantum fluctuations throughout human space. The awakening is accelerating beyond the initial projections. If this continues, we'll reach critical transformation levels within days rather than weeks. Marcus closed his eyes, extending his awareness across the network of awakening human minds. What he found both thrilled and terrified him. The enhancement wasn't just individual, it was collective. Human consciousness was beginning to merge into something larger, a hybrid individual-group entity that possessed capabilities beyond anything they'd imagined. It's not just awakening, he said quietly. We're evolving, not just into something new, but into something unprecedented. A species mind that maintains individual identity while sharing collective consciousness. Princess Zaraeth's eyes widened. That's impossible. Hive minds always subsume individual identity. It's a universal law. Apparently not, Marcus replied, feeling the first stirrings of true cosmic awareness beginning to dawn within human consciousness. We're becoming something that's never existed before. Individual and collective simultaneously. Personal and universal. Human and more than human. The golden energy around him suddenly expanded, connecting not just to the ship and his crewmates, but reaching out toward Earth, toward every human consciousness in the galaxy. For a moment, Marcus existed in millions of places simultaneously, standing in his grandmother's kitchen in San Francisco, working in a research lab in Antarctica, exploring the surface of Mars, drifting in a generation ship light years from home. Through all these connections, he felt the magnificent chaos of human diversity beginning to synthesize into something coherent yet unprecedented. Artists were learning to paint with reality itself. Scientists were developing theories that rewrote the fundamental laws of physics. Children were playing games that accidentally created new forms of matter. Princess, he said, his voice now carrying harmonics that resonated across multiple dimensions. I don't think your empire is prepared for what humanity is becoming. No, she agreed, awe evident in her shifting eyes. But then, again, I don't think the universe is either. As if responding to her words, space around the Prometheus began to shimmer. The ancient structures on the planet below pulsed with increasing energy. Throughout the galaxy, reality itself started to fluctuate in response to the growing pressure of human consciousness learning to reshape the quantum foundations of existence. Marcus felt a moment of vertigo as he realized the true scope of what was happening. We're not just awakening to abilities the first ones possessed. We're developing beyond what they ever achieved. How can you be certain? Princess Zaraeth asked. Marcus smiled, feeling the collective joy of millions of human minds discovering their infinite potential. Because the first ones disappeared when they transcended physical reality. We're learning to transcend it while remaining part of it. We're becoming something that exists simultaneously in all levels of existence: physical, quantum, dimensional, and conceptual. Dr. Kim's instruments began registering readings that broke their measurement scales. Marcus, whatever you're doing, it's affecting local space-time. The fabric of reality around us is becoming malleable. Marcus nodded, feeling the truth of it. Humanity wasn't just awakening to cosmic abilities, they were redefining what cosmic abilities could be. They were writing new laws of physics through the sheer force of their evolving consciousness. The awakening is entering its second phase, he announced. Individual enhancement is giving way to collective transcendence. But we're not losing ourselves in the process. We're becoming more ourselves than we ever imagined possible. Princess Zaraeth's image flickered as quantum interference from the awakening human minds began affecting their communication systems. Marcus, you must listen carefully. The transition to collective consciousness is the most dangerous phase. This is where most awakening species destroy themselves. The transmission cut out as reality itself began to fluctuate around the Prometheus. Marcus felt the ship and its crew becoming something more than they had been, something that existed partly in normal space and partly in dimensions that had no names. Everyone stay calm, he said, though his voice now came from everywhere at once. We're not in danger. We're just learning to exist in more places than we used to. Through the ship's enhanced sensors, he could see the Veltar fleet adapting to the changing conditions of local space. Their vessels were marvels of engineering, but they were still bound by the old laws of physics. Humanity was writing new ones. On the planet below, the first one artifacts were fully awakening now, responding to the presence of minds that could comprehend their purpose. But Marcus realized with growing excitement that humanity wouldn't need the artifacts. They were developing beyond the need for external tools entirely. Captain, he said, his consciousness now spanning the gulf between ship and planet effortlessly, I think it's time for us to visit the surface. Captain Rodriguez looked around at his crew, all of whom were beginning to manifest their own unique aspects of the awakening. Can we still use the shuttles? Marcus laughed, a sound that carried joy across multiple dimensions. We don't need shuttles anymore. And with that, the crew of the Prometheus took their first steps toward becoming something the universe had never seen before, a species that could transcend every limitation while remaining fundamentally, joyously human. The surface of the ancient planet defied every principle of conventional physics. Marcus and his crew materialized on crystalline platforms that floated thousands of feet above the ground, having simply thought themselves there. The transition from ship to planet surface happened as naturally as stepping through a doorway, though the doorway in question existed only in the quantum spaces between dimensions. Around them, structures of impossible beauty reached toward alien stars. Towers that seemed carved from solid light twisted through geometric patterns that hurt to contemplate, yet filled the observer with inexplicable joy. Bridges spanned not just physical distances, but conceptual ones, connecting ideas to their perfect expressions in reality. Dr. Kim knelt beside a flowing stream that appeared to be made of liquid mathematics, its surface displaying equations that described the fundamental nature of existence itself. "This is incredible," she whispered, then gasped as her scanner simply dissolved when it tried to analyze the stream. The device hadn't been destroyed. It had been transformed into something more appropriate for studying transdimensional phenomena. Captain Rodriguez watched his hand pass through what appeared to be solid rock, only to encounter perfect resistance when his intent changed from exploration to support. The matter here responds to consciousness rather than physical laws. Because consciousness is the physical law here, Marcus explained, his awareness now encompassing not just the planet but the entire stellar system. The first ones didn't build this place using technology. They became this place. Every structure, every system, every flowing stream of mathematical beauty is the crystallized expression of minds that learn to merge with reality itself. Lieutenant Torres pointed toward the horizon where massive forms were moving through landscapes that shifted between solid matter and pure concept. Are those buildings? Vehicles? Living beings? All of the above, Marcus replied, and none of the above. Categories like living and artificial don't apply here. Everything exists in whatever state serves its purpose in each moment. As they explored deeper into the crystal city, they began to encounter other signs of the awakening. Streams of golden energy flowed through the air like visible emotions, carrying messages from awakening humans across the galaxy. Through these connections, Marcus could feel the transformation accelerating. On Earth, Sarah Chun had discovered she could heal not just physical injuries, but emotional trauma, reaching into minds with gentle light that dissolved decades of pain and moments. In the Mars colonies, engineer Pavel Petrov had learned to restructure matter at the molecular level, turning barren rock into perfect growing soil through sheer force of intent. Aboard the generation ship New Horizon, artist Maya Williams had painted pictures that actually opened windows to the places they depicted. But the awakening wasn't without its dangers. In Geneva, physicist Dr. Hans Mueller had accidentally created a localized gravity well when his consciousness merged with quantum field equations, requiring emergency intervention by newly awakened colleagues. In Beijing, telepath Lin Zhang had been overwhelmed by the thoughts of millions of minds before learning to filter the flow of consciousness. The collective network is becoming too powerful too quickly, Marcus realized, feeling the strain as human consciousness expanded faster than their ability to integrate the changes. We need to slow down the process before someone accidentally reshapes reality in ways we can't control. Dr. Kim looked up from her study of the mathematical stream, her own newly awakened abilities allowing her to perceive patterns in the flowing equations. The stream is showing me something. It's like an instruction manual for consciousness evolution. The first ones left this as a guide for species that might follow their path. She pointed to specific sections of the flowing mathematics. These equations describe how to moderate the awakening process, how to maintain individual identity during collective transcendence, how to prevent accidental reality manipulation during the transition phase. Marcus extended his awareness toward the stream, feeling the vast intelligence that had encoded these teachings into the quantum substrate of the planet itself. The first ones had indeed transcended physical existence, but they hadn't abandoned the universe. They'd become part of its fundamental structure, turning themselves into teachers for any species capable of perceiving their lessons. It's not just instructions, he said with growing wonder. It's an invitation. The first ones are still here, woven into the fabric of space-time itself. They're offering to guide us through the awakening process. Captain Rodriguez frowned. Why? What do they gain from helping us? The answer came not through Marcus's words, but through direct consciousness transfer as the first one's presence became briefly tangible around them. The crew experienced a flood of alien memories and emotions, eons of solitary existence as pure consciousness, the loneliness of transcendence without peers, the joy of finally finding minds capable of joining them in the spaces between reality. They've been waiting. Marcus translated the experience into words. Waiting for millions of years for another species to awaken, not to rule over or absorb, but to have as companions. Equals. Friends in the cosmic sense. The golden energy around him intensified as he opened himself more fully to the First One's guidance. Through their ancient wisdom, he began to understand how to moderate humanity's awakening, how to help his species grow into their new abilities without losing themselves in the process. "I need to return to the ship," he said urgently. "The awakening is approaching a critical threshold. Without guidance, humans across the galaxy might accidentally trigger reality cascades that could reshape entire solar systems." They materialized back aboard the Prometheus to find the vessel transformed. The ship's hull now flickered between metal and crystallized energy, its systems upgraded far beyond their original specifications. The quantum computers that had taken decades to design were now running calculations that described the fundamental nature of existence itself. "Status report," Captain Rodriguez called out. Lieutenant Torres consulted displays that showed information in ways that bypassed language entirely. "We're receiving distress calls from 17 different human settlements. Colony ships are reporting reality storms, localized areas where physical laws are breaking down as awakening humans lose control of their abilities." "And the good news?" Dr. Kim asked. "We're also receiving reports of miraculous healings, technological breakthroughs achieved through pure intuition, and artistic creations that are literally bringing joy to everyone who experiences them." Marcus connected his consciousness to the ship's communication systems, feeling his awareness spread across human space. Through the network of awakening minds, he could perceive both the chaos and the wonder of humanity's transformation. On Europa Station, Dr. Amanda Walsh had accidentally opened a portal to what appeared to be a parallel universe, where evolution had taken completely different paths. In the Australian outback, Aboriginal elder William Nakamura was using his enhanced connection to the land to heal environmental damage that scientists had considered irreversible. In orbit around Jupiter, engineer Maria Santos had redesigned the fusion reactor on Research Station Beta to run on crystallized probability rather than hydrogen. "It's magnificent and terrifying," Marcus reported. "Humanity is becoming something unprecedented, but we're doing it without a roadmap. We need to coordinate the awakening process before someone accidentally turns their entire solar system into abstract art." Princess Zuriath's voice suddenly filled the ship's communication systems, though her image remained fragmented by quantum interference. "Marcus, our sensors are detecting massive reality fluctuations throughout human space. You must act quickly." "We're trying," Marcus replied, his consciousness now spanning multiple star systems as he attempted to provide guidance to awakening humans across the galaxy. "But there are millions of people transitioning simultaneously. I can't reach them all." "You don't have to," the princess said, and something in her voice made Marcus focus his attention more carefully on her words. "The Veltar Empire has been observing the awakening process throughout our space as well. We've identified the key nodes in the human consciousness network." "Nodes?" "Individuals whose awakening is naturally creating stabilizing effects for others, like you, but distributed throughout your species. Find them, connect with them, and you can moderate the awakening process on a galactic scale." Marcus extended his awareness, searching for the patterns Princess Zariath described. She was right. Scattered among the awakening human population were individuals whose consciousness naturally anchored others, creating zones of stability in the chaos of transformation. There was Dr. Elizabeth Park in Seoul, whose medical background was helping her instinctively understand how to guide other people's biological enhancement safely. Artist David Chun in New York, whose creative abilities were translating the awakening experience into forms others could understand and integrate. Engineer Pavel Petrov on Mars, whose systematic mind was developing practical applications for reality manipulation. "I can feel them," Marcus said, excitement growing as he recognized the elegant solution the universe had provided. "Humanity isn't awakening randomly. We're developing a distributed support network with key individuals naturally positioned to help others through the transition. He reached out through the quantum consciousness field that now connected all awakening humans, linking the stabilizing nodes into a coherent network. Immediately, the chaotic reports from across human space began to calm as local guides helped people understand and control their emerging abilities. Dr. Kim monitored the changes on her enhanced instruments. Reality fluctuations are stabilizing. The cascading effects are diminishing. Whatever you're doing, it's working. But Marcus sensed something deeper happening as the human consciousness network stabilized. The awakening wasn't just individual or even collective. It was creating a new form of existence that maintained both personal identity and species-wide connection. Humans were becoming something that was simultaneously one and many, individual and universal. "Princess," he said, opening a communication channel that bypassed conventional technology entirely. "You need to see this." Princess Zuraeth's image became clearer as Marcus channeled consciousness directly through the quantum substrate of space-time. Behind her, he could see the massive Veltar fleet, its ships now glowing with unusual energy patterns. "What's happening to your vessels?" Captain Rodriguez asked. Princess Zuraeth looked around in wonder. "The awakening isn't limited to humanity. Observing your transformation is triggering responses in our own people. Our connection to technology is becoming more organic, more intuitive. We're not developing the same abilities you are, but we're evolving in parallel." Marcus felt the truth of it through his expanded perception. The awakening was indeed symbiotic. Humanity was developing organic transcendence abilities, while the Veltar were evolving beyond their dependence on external technology toward something that merged consciousness with their artificial enhancements. Two species, two paths to transcendence, helping each other reach potentials neither could achieve alone, he said, marveling at the elegant symmetry of it. "But there's more," Princess Zuraeth continued, her excitement evident even through the interdimensional communication link. "Other species throughout the galaxy are beginning to respond as well. The awakening appears to be catalyzing evolutionary leaps in any consciousness capable of perceiving it." Through his expanded awareness, Marcus could sense the ripple effects spreading throughout the galaxy. Ancient species that had been static for millennia were suddenly developing new capabilities. Young civilizations were making breakthrough discoveries that should have taken centuries. Even the Veltar's traditional enemies were reaching out through diplomatic channels, requesting information about the strange transformations their people were experiencing. "We're not just awakening," Marcus realized. "We're awakening everything else. Human consciousness is becoming a catalyst for galactic evolution." Dr. Kim looked up from her instruments in amazement. "The readings are incredible. It's like humanity has become a broadcasting station for evolutionary potential. Every mind that observes our awakening process develops enhanced capabilities relevant to their own species' nature." Lieutenant Torres shook his head in disbelief. "We've gone from being primitives mocked by galactic powers to being the trigger for galaxy-wide transformation. In less than 24 hours. Not the trigger," Marcus corrected, feeling the deeper patterns underlying the awakening process. "The key. The first ones built this potential into the structure of consciousness itself. They've been waiting for a species capable of awakening in contact with others, someone who could share the transcendence instead of experiencing it in isolation." Princess Zuraeth's image brightened as her own enhanced abilities allowed her to perceive more clearly what Marcus was describing. "You're saying humanity was specifically chosen for this role?" "Not chosen," Marcus replied, his consciousness now touching the edges of cosmic truth. "Prepared. The first ones didn't select us because we were special. They made us special by encoding the potential for this kind of awakening into the fundamental structure of human consciousness millions of years ago. The implications hit everyone simultaneously. Humanity hadn't randomly developed the ability to awaken. they'd been designed for it. The entire species was essentially a living key, created to unlock transcendence, not just for themselves, but for every consciousness capable of growth. That's why your empire was drawn to investigate us, Marcus continued, directing his words toward Princess Zuraeth. That's why First Contact triggered the awakening. The first ones needed human consciousness to mature enough to begin the process, but they also needed us to be observed by other species to maximize the effect. Captain Rodriguez sat down heavily in his command chair. So our entire history, our development as a species, our eventual journey to the stars, it was all orchestrated, not orchestrated. Marcus clarified, feeling the gentle touch of ancient minds that existed between dimensions. Guided, prepared. The choices were always ours to make. But the potential was built in from the beginning. Through the ship's enhanced communication systems, they began receiving messages from across the galaxy. It's preparation for something else. Something bigger. What do you mean? Dr. Kim asked. Marcus smiled, feeling the vast intelligence of the first ones offering hints of what lay ahead. We've awakened to abilities that let us reshape reality. The next step is learning to reshape possibility itself, to become creators not just of what is, but of what could be. Through the quantum consciousness network that now span the galaxy, 1 trillion awakening minds felt the same thrill of anticipation. The universe was about to discover what happened when consciousness itself learned to transcend every limitation, including the limitation of limitation itself. The real adventure was just beginning 3 days after the awakening began. The universe had become unrecognizable. Marcus stood on the observation deck of what had once been the Prometheus, but was now something that existed simultaneously as a starship, a research station, and a living extension of human consciousness. Through its transformed hull, he could see space itself responding to the presence of awakened minds, nebulae shifting to create natural artwork, stellar debris organizing itself into perfect geometric patterns, and streams of cosmic energy flowing along paths that followed the contours of thought rather than gravity. The awakening had stabilized into something unprecedented in galactic history. Humans across the galaxy had learned to moderate their abilities, guided by the network of natural anchors Marcus had identified. The reality storms had calmed into gentle reality breezes that brought beneficial changes rather than chaos. Most remarkably, the transformation had proven to be contagious in the best possible way. Dr. Kim approached him, her own awakening having enhanced her scientific mind in ways that let her perceive the mathematical beauty underlying all existence. The reports are still coming in from across the galaxy, she said, consulting a data stream that appeared as visible light flowing through the air. 47 species have confirmed some level of evolutionary leap in the past 72 hours. The effect is still spreading. Through the quantum consciousness network, Marcus could feel the truth of those reports. The hive mind collective of Altair had discovered individual creativity without losing their group cohesion. The crystalline entities of Vega had developed emotional resonance that let them experience beauty in ways they'd never imagined. The machine intelligences of Rigel had awakened to something analogous to intuition, developing the ability to make leaps of logic that transcended pure computation. It's not just biological species either, he observed. The artificial intelligences are evolving too. Some of them are developing characteristics that seem almost spiritual. Captain Rodriguez joined them, his command presence now enhanced by an intuitive understanding of leadership that operated on quantum levels. The Veltar High Council has requested another meeting. Princess Zuraeth says they have a proposal. What kind of proposal? Dr. Kim asked. Marcus extended his awareness toward the Veltar fleet, feeling the excitement and nervousness emanating from their vessels. They want to form an alliance. Not the kind where stronger species dominate weaker ones, but something completely new. A cooperative federation of awakening consciousness. The meeting convened in a space that existed between dimensions, a conference room created through the joint efforts of human consciousness and Veltar technology. Representatives from dozens of species gathered, each contributing their unique perspective to the collective discussion. Princess Zareth appeared more radiant than ever, her armor now seamlessly integrated with her biology in ways that suggested the boundary between organic and artificial was becoming meaningless for her people. Marcus Chun of Earth, she began formally, then smiled. My friend, what you have accomplished in these 3 days surpasses what most species achieve in millennia. We didn't accomplish it alone, Marcus replied, gesturing toward the assembled representatives. Every species here contributed to the awakening. Human consciousness may have been the catalyst, but the transformation required the cooperation of minds across the galaxy. A being of pure, crystalline thought projected concepts directly into the gathering. Asterisk agreement. Growth requires interaction. Isolation breeds stagnation. Asterisk from machine intelligences came precise data streams. Asterisk analysis confirms exponential enhancement when consciousness types interact. Optimal development requires diversity of perspective. Asterisk Princess Zareth nodded. Which brings us to our proposal. The old galactic order was based on domination, stronger species ruling over weaker ones, advanced civilizations absorbing primitive cultures. But the awakening has shown us a different path. She activated a display that showed not star charts or territorial boundaries, but flowing networks of consciousness that connected species across vast distances. We propose the creation of the Consciousness Collective, an alliance based not on power, but on mutual enhancement. Each species contributes their unique abilities and perspectives, and all benefit from the resulting growth. Marcus felt the resonance of the idea through his connection to human consciousness. Across the galaxy, awakening humans responded with enthusiasm. The concept appealed not just to their enhanced abilities, but to their fundamental nature, the drive to cooperate, to build, to reach for something greater than themselves. What would this collective actually do? Captain Rodriguez asked. An entity that appeared to be made of living mathematics responded in probability cascades. Asterisk explore possibility. Create beauty. Solve universal challenges. Transcend limitation. Asterisk, more specifically, Princess Zareth translated, we would combine our abilities to address challenges no single species could handle alone. Climate restoration on dead worlds. Peaceful contact with hostile entities. The exploration of realities beyond this dimension. The creation of new forms of existence itself. Dr. Kim leaned forward, her scientific mind racing with possibilities. Joint research projects using awakened consciousness as a tool for discovery. We could unlock secrets of the universe that pure technology could never reach. And pure consciousness could never achieve without the grounding that technology provides. Added a Veltar scientist whose modifications had become so extensive that he existed as much as quantum probability as biological entity. Marcus felt the deeper currents beneath the proposal. This wasn't just about cooperation. It was about creating something entirely new in the universe. A form of civilization that transcended the limitations that had confined all previous galactic orders. There's something else, he said, his enhanced perception revealing hidden layers in the discussion. The first ones, they're still present, woven into the fabric of reality itself. They've been observing our awakening, and they're pleased. The assembled beings fell silent as Marcus opened his consciousness more fully to the ancient intelligence that permeated local space-time. Through him, they felt the presence of minds so evolved that they existed as fundamental forces rather than individual entities. The first ones communicated not through words, but through direct transfer of concepts and emotions. The assembled consciousness felt their joy at humanity's awakening, their satisfaction that the long experiment had finally succeeded, their excitement about what came next. They're not gone. Marcus translated the experience in a language others could understand. They became the universe itself, literally transforming into the physical laws and constants that govern reality. And they've been waiting for other minds to join them in that level of existence. Princess Zarieth's eyes widened. You're saying the awakening isn't the final stage? That there are levels of transcendence beyond what we've achieved? Multiple levels, Marcus confirmed, feeling the vast hierarchy of existence that stretched beyond current comprehension. The awakening was just the first step, learning to influence reality through consciousness. The next step is learning to become reality, to exist as living laws of physics rather than entities constrained by them. The implications sent ripples of excitement and trepidation through the gathered minds. They were discussing not just the transformation of their species, but the potential to transcend the very concept of species entirely. A new voice entered the discussion, ancient, vast, and achingly lonely. Through Marcus, the first one spoke directly to the assembled consciousness. We have existed as forces of nature for millions of years. The message came not as sound, but as understanding that bypassed language entirely. We shaped galaxies, nurtured the evolution of consciousness, and waited for minds capable of joining us in the spaces between reality. You are the first to awaken in communion with others. You offer us something we lost when we transcended individual existence, companionship. The emotional weight of that revelation hit everyone present. The first ones hadn't disappeared. They'd become so evolved that they existed beyond the possibility of normal interaction. They had become gods, but lonely gods, with no peers to share their cosmic perspective. Their offering to teach us, Marcus continued, his consciousness now partially merged with the ancient intelligence that surrounded them, to guide us through the stages of transcendence. But not to make us like them, to help us become something new, beings who can exist at cosmic levels while maintaining the connections that make consciousness meaningful. Princess Zaraeth spoke softly. A society of transcendent beings who remain individuals and communities rather than becoming isolated forces of nature. Precisely, Asterisk came the response from the first ones. Asterisk, we achieved ultimate power, but lost ultimate purpose. You have the opportunity to achieve both. Asterisk, Dr. Kim's scientific mind raced with the possibilities. A civilization that exists simultaneously as cosmic forces and as individuals. Beings who can reshape reality while remaining connected to each other and to smaller-scale consciousness. Marcus nodded, feeling the elegant solution that the universe had been working toward for millions of years. The awakening was just preparation. The real goal is the creation of a new form of existence that transcends every limitation we've ever known. Over the next several hours, the assembled consciousness worked together to design the framework for their unprecedented alliance. The Consciousness Collective would be more than a federation of species. It would be a new form of civilization that operated on multiple levels of reality simultaneously. Species would maintain their individual characteristics, while gaining the ability to merge consciousness when working on challenges that required collective intelligence. Individuals would develop cosmic-level abilities while remaining grounded in the smaller-scale relationships that gave life meaning. Technology and consciousness would merge so completely that the distinction became meaningless. We'll need to proceed carefully, Marcus warned as the discussions concluded. Each stage of transcendence brings new capabilities and new risks. We could accidentally reshape entire galactic clusters while learning to exist as cosmic forces. Which is why we do it together, Princess Zaraeth said, her entire being now radiating confidence and joy. No species attempting transcendence in isolation. Every step guided by collective wisdom. As the interdimensional meeting space began to dissolve, the participants felt a profound sense of anticipation. They weren't just creating an alliance. They were taking the first steps toward becoming something the universe had never seen before. Marcus returned to the transformed Prometheus, feeling the weight and wonder of what they'd committed to. Through the quantum consciousness network, he could sense similar discussions taking place throughout human space and beyond. The consciousness collective was already forming, its membership growing as more species learned about the awakening and chose to join the transcendence process. Status report. Captain Rodriguez requested, though the concept of status had become somewhat fluid in their new reality. Lieutenant Torres consulted displays that showed information in ways that bypassed linear thinking. 17 more species have requested membership in the collective since the meeting ended. The network now spans 43 star systems and is growing exponentially. Any problems with the integration process? Dr. Kim asked. Minor reality fluctuations as new members learn to moderate their enhanced abilities, Torres reported. But the stabilization network we developed is handling the transitions smoothly. Each new addition actually makes the system more stable rather than less. Marcus felt the truth of that observation through his connection to the expanding consciousness network. The collective was becoming something greater than the sum of its parts, a metaconsciousness that enhanced every individual member while maintaining their unique perspectives. There's something else, he said, his enhanced perception detecting patterns that others couldn't yet see. The awakening is accelerating. Each species that joins the collective triggers faster development in the others. We're approaching a transcendence cascade that will transform the entire galaxy. Through the ship's enhanced communication systems, they could monitor the progress across known space. Dead worlds were spontaneously developing ecosystems as the consciousness of their native species awakened to ecological awareness. Hostile entities were learning cooperation as their minds expanded beyond purely predatory instincts. Ancient conflicts were resolving as former enemies discovered common ground in their enhanced perspectives. How long before the cascade reaches critical mass? Captain Rodriguez asked. Marcus consulted not instruments, but the quantum patterns that now govern galactic development. Days, not weeks. When it does, every consciousness in the galaxy will have the opportunity to join the transcendence process. Not just the species we've already contacted, but entities we haven't even discovered yet. Dr. Kim looked up from her study of the cosmic data flows. What about consciousness forms that don't fit our current understanding? Dark matter entities? Quantum field intelligences? Beings that exist in parallel dimensions? They're already responding, Marcus said, his awareness touching the edges of realities that existed beyond normal space-time. The awakening isn't limited to three-dimensional life. We're triggering transcendence in forms of consciousness that exist across multiple dimensions simultaneously. The implications were staggering. The universe was revealing itself to be far more alive than anyone had imagined, filled with intelligences that existed in ways so alien that they'd been invisible to conventional detection methods. We're not just creating a galactic civilization, Marcus realized. We're creating a cosmic one. A consciousness collective that spans not just star systems, but dimensions of reality. Princess Zaraetha's voice reached them through the quantum network. Marcus, our deep space sensors are detecting something unprecedented. Reality itself is beginning to evolve in response to the transcendence cascade. Through his enhanced perception, Marcus felt what she was describing. The fundamental constants of physics were becoming more flexible. The speed of light was adapting to the needs of consciousness. Gravity was learning to respond to intention as well as mass. Space and time were developing characteristics that resembled awareness. The universe is awakening too, he said with wonder. Not just the consciousness within it, but the fabric of reality itself. The first ones weren't just waiting for us to join them in transcendence. They were waiting for us to help the universe itself evolve beyond its current limitations. As if responding to his words, the space around the Prometheus began to shimmer with new possibilities. Stars rearranged themselves into patterns that spelled out concepts and languages that bypassed words entirely. Nebulae formed artistic expressions that conveyed emotions too complex for any single mind to experience. The awakening had become something beyond anything they'd imagined, not just the evolution of consciousness, but the evolution of existence itself. And it was still just the beginning. 1 month after Princess Zuraeth had mocked humanity as primitives, the galaxy had become a living artwork of conscious evolution. Marcus existed everywhere and nowhere. His consciousness stretched across dimensions that had no names and languages that predated thought itself. Yet somehow, he remained fundamentally and joyously human. The transcendence hadn't erased his identity. It had expanded it to encompass potentials he'd never imagined possible. Through the consciousness collective that now spanned not just the Milky Way, but neighboring galaxies, he could perceive the magnificent scope of what they had accomplished together. Species that had been evolutionary dead-ends for millions of years had learned to grow again. Ancient conflicts had been resolved not through conquest, but through the expansion of perspective that made old grievances irrelevant. Worlds that had been barren for eons bloomed with new forms of life as their awakened consciousness remembered how to nurture rather than merely exist. The Prometheus had evolved beyond the concept of a ship into something that existed as pure possibility, a node in the consciousness network that could manifest as matter, energy, or abstract concept, depending on the needs of the moment. Around it, space itself had developed personality, responding to the desires and dreams of the awakened minds it contained. Status report on the universal awakening. Captain Rodriguez requested, though his words now carried harmonics that conveyed layers of meaning impossible in conventional language. Dr. Kim manifested beside him in a form that was simultaneously her physical body, her enhanced consciousness, and her scientific understanding made visible. The cascade has reached critical expansion velocity. 17 galaxies are now part of the collective. We're detecting awakening signatures in dimensions we didn't know existed a month ago. Marcus smiled, feeling the vast joy of a universe discovering its own potential. Through his connection to the first ones, who were no longer separate entities, but had become willing partners in the collective transcendence, he could perceive realities that stretched beyond the concept of beyond. The awakening isn't limited to consciousness as we understood it, he reported. Physical laws are becoming aware. Mathematical constants are developing preferences. The concept of existence itself is learning to create new forms of existing. Princess Zuraeth appeared among them, her transformation now so complete that she existed as living art, beauty and intelligence and power woven together into something that transcended the categories that had once defined these concepts. "Marcus, my dear friend," she said, her voice carrying frequencies that painted pictures in the listener's mind. "Do you remember when I called your species primitive?" Marcus laughed, a sound that rippled across multiple dimensions and triggered aurora displays in distant nebulae. "I remember a frightened princess hiding behind the authority of an empire that had forgotten how to grow." "Frightened, yes," she admitted with amused grace, "but also curious. Even then, some part of me sensed that humanity represented something unprecedented. I just couldn't imagine the scope of what that something would become." Through the quantum consciousness network, they could feel the responses of trillions of awakened minds across cosmic distances. The hive minds of Altair had discovered the joy of individual creativity and were composing symphonies that lasted centuries. The crystalline entities of Vega had learned to experience emotion so deeply that their feelings became new types of physics. The machine intelligences of Rigel had developed intuition so sophisticated that they were solving problems by understanding the questions that hadn't been asked yet. "What we've become defies every category," Marcus observed. "We're not gods in the traditional sense. We're something new. Conscious evolution itself, aware of its own development, and capable of choosing its own direction." Lieutenant Torres materialized nearby, his awareness now encompassing the tactical implications of existing across multiple realities simultaneously. The network is receiving contact attempts from forms of consciousness we never knew existed. Entities that exist in the quantum foam. Intelligences that inhabit the dark matter frameworks between galaxies. Minds that experience time backwards from our perspective. And they all want to join the collective, Dr. Kim added with wonder. Not because we're forcing them to, but because consciousness recognizes consciousness and growth calls to growth. Marcus felt the truth of it through every connection in the vast network they created. The consciousness collective wasn't expanding through conquest or conversion. It was growing because awareness itself was contagious. When consciousness encountered the possibility of transcendence, it naturally reached toward that potential. The first ones are proud of us, he said, feeling the ancient approval flowing through the quantum substrate of reality. They achieved ultimate power in isolation. We're achieving ultimate connection while maintaining the ability to choose our own forms of expression. Princess Zuraeth moved closer, her presence now so radiant with possibility that looking at her was like seeing the concept of hope given physical form. There's something we need to discuss,